Morning. Welcome to the August 24th San Mateo County Harbor District Board of Harbor Commissioners meeting. Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? Commissioner Zemke.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
The alarm went off.
We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Donrot,
Present.
Commissioner Zemke,
Present.
President Mateusz,
Present.
Commissioner Slater Carter. Here.
This is a time of the day when we take public comments. I don't recall seeing any emailed in, and there's no members of the public in the room here joining us on this marvelous day on the coast. So at this point, we will go to commissioner comments. Do we have any commissioners that would like to? Commissioner Domerat.
So I'd like to report out a couple of things. One, I want to thank staff for going with us to several marine science type facilities a few weeks back. Catherine and myself were in attendance. We went to the University of UC, they're not UC, they're state universities, San Francisco. They have a facility at Tiburon. It was the old, if anybody remembers that area, it was the old World War II.
Kaiser Shipyard.
The Kaiser Shipyard, and then they built the nets, for submarine nets. So that facility has been basically abandoned, but given up, and I guess San Francisco State purchased it. And part of it's been made into their marine science research center. They don't typically have guests coming. It's pure research, laboratories, all that. And I wanted the commissioners to get an idea of kind of a pure research facility as we develop our ocean science research and education center. Then we went to the San Francisco Bay model. Now that is an engineering tool that was heavily used in the 60s, 70s, 80s, up into the early 90s to study waters within the bay and the challenges of dredging and how it impacts the waters throughout the whole bay delta system. That tool is now just an artifact of numerical modeling. Numerical modeling now has overridden all of that, but the tool is a great visitor center. You get it. It's about 2 football fields put together. So it's a huge model called physical model versus the numerical models. And it's got a hands-off visitor center. They talk about the bay. There's all these things about the fish and about the fishing and the history of the bay and history of San Francisco as it interacted with the bay. So it's a good hands-off place where you just go and they have an automated slideshow and then all of these things about dredging in the bay and everything that happens. So that's another one for education of hands-off where you don't really, have a docent or somebody that would guide you through. Next. The other thing is I attended a meeting last week for 3 days of the Coastal Engineering Research Board. This is a board that was established in 1963 of the Army Corps of Engineers, guiding how and what the Corps of Engineers will do in coastal research. And so the board is made up of 3 commanders of the various division offices around the country. The chief of engineers, who is the kind of the lead of that team, and they'll get 3 civilians who are world recognized experts in coastal engineering, coastal studies, and they would have environmental people, oceanographers. This group would then look at everything the Corps is doing and wants to do and give them guidance, saying, no, you're going the wrong direction here, or the right direction. And then it's right under the direction of the commander of the Corps. And what he says is law, you're going to do this, this, or this, or this. We'll move these meetings around the whole country. San Francisco sponsored it this time. And they'll look at the challenges of that area. And then the district and locals will give presentations. We have USGS gave a talk about sediments around the bay and outside. So you get a lot of these technical presentations, which then the regional people will say, here's what we need in research. Here is what we're missing. So then they'll, task people to do certain things. stood up and gave a presentation saying that back in the mid-70s, the Corps of Engineers built a pier that sticks out in the ocean almost about 100 yards at a place called Duck, North Carolina. It's just north of Kitty Hawk. And they built this huge research facility, and they spend millions and millions and millions of dollars every year to do studies and research. And there's universities and colleges that come in as invited guests to do studies and that. So since the late 80s and early 90s, maybe I was jealous. It could be, as a member of the Corps of Engineers. I said, well, why don't we have a facility like that on the West Coast? So I wrote a little white paper with some of the other researchers. And I said, look, we can right now come to various government facilities along the coast, whether it be Morro Bay, whether it be Oxnard, down at Point Mugu, there's a lot of things, and do some like 5-year studies. Position yourself in one place. The reason for that is all of this great research that the Corps develops in North Carolina, and they develop numerical models based on that. You bring those models out here and they don't work. There's something always wrong. And it's off by 20 or 30%. So we've been pushing for years and years and years and years to get come to, Pillar Point Harbor for 5 years and study something, or up and down the coast, up and down, between Washington and Oregon. So I made this presentation that got picked up on by the South Pacific Division commander, our commander. So I'm going to work more closely with him to try to do something. But in the 90s, when I came up with that idea, weren't a lot of universities doing work on the coast. They've always had Scripps. Scripps has been down there, a little bit Stanford, down Monterey, but very little. Now there's University of Washington, Oregon State, Humboldt State, Cal Poly, Scripps, Santa Cruz. All of these universities are doing some research. So I think the concept may change, where we'll build a consortium of West Coast universities who are doing research and get cheap student labor to then say, okay, Corps of Engineers is going to give you $10 million for the next 5 years to do some of this research. And they probably have their facilities everywhere. So we're going to modify that. Then I talked a little bit about, what we want to do here at Pillar Point. So that, and you see on the board, we were doing with our committee, I had the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and now we may be able to attract some funding and some research that can be based out of here. The other kind of important things that were developed in that meeting, or presented by the commander in that meeting, was that the Corps is now changing how it computes its economic benefits for projects. In the old days, you may have heard terms called NED, or National Economic Development Benefits. The commander said he never wants to hear that word NED again. They're getting rid of it. I just got sent today, I sent a copy to Jim, 40 pages of the smallest microprint. My computer couldn't even bullet it big enough, in the Federal Register, of how they're going to change to compute benefits. They're going to get rid of NED benefits. They're going to look at regional benefits, more important. They're going to look at non-monetary benefits, environmental benefits. All of these things are going to make up how they justify projects, no longer just benefit to the whole country. It's also what happens here regionally. There's a couple of things that were happening that was very exciting.
$6,000 a year to park the bus.
Again, I mean, if I keep talking, I'll take up the whole meeting. So
Gosh, you've been busy.
I was. It was a great, I knew the meeting was the 100th meeting. So you got to understand, they have like 2 of these meetings a year. So, and I think I've been to at least 80 of those 100 of those meetings.
Wow.
But it is a great meeting. And then you, as a person locally, you would go to these meetings and find out, well, what's happening in Wilmington, North Carolina, or New Jersey, or Texas, or Hawaii, looking at the research needs and how we're solving some of these problems. So the whole Corps gets together, and all its core experts, and they get direction from this board that's saying, because if you're going the wrong way, they're going to cut you off right there. So anyway, that's all for now, but any questions or anything?
Have kind of a note that I mentally made. You said that they've been doing calculations, they replaced the Bay model with a calculation. And then later on, you said that when they were running numbers about the West Coast over on the East Coast, they were generally off by 20 to 30%. Now, we've got all these people running numbers about global warming, and all these people running all these numbers remotely on so many things. And I keep wondering, I have been wondering for years, what the error factor is. And you've given me a point that I think I'll pay attention to in the future, because we're making as districts and as communities, these enormously expensive decisions based on numbers that everyone says, well, of course they're right, the computer did it.
There's always error bands on all those numbers. You know, some
Exactly.
are bigger and some are smaller. The other thing that a lot of the local organizations were using were European models. So the Corps of Engineers said, well, look, we're developing these models for millions and millions of dollars. Corps, you have to use core models, numerical models, computer models, unless you can demonstrate that those models don't work. So within the Bay, the Danish Hydraulic Institute, there's all these models that they developed that actually work better than a lot of the core models. So, numbers are numbers. You have to have good numbers to put in, otherwise you get garbage numbers out. But all of this stuff and all of that data all has error, percent error on them, and you always got to watch that when you're looking at the results. Of that stuff.
My point exactly. And, I'm glad we operate with local numbers on
One of
many
the major
things.
takeaways of this new approach is if they had this approach in 2015 when they evaluated the Surfers Beach project, where their decision was it wasn't economically viable, the project would, if they did it today under their new process, would be economically viable. So it's a significant change for us and good news.
And it's good for us that we're going to be reevaluating that for us now. Pacifica fell into that hole back in 14, I guess. Also, they did a report that says, well, that the economics just doesn't look good. So that kind of died. So, I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of these places revisited under this new formulation of how to compute the benefits.
Good. I'm glad we're involved and up to date and keeping the public informed about
Oh, yeah.
all of this stuff. Because so many people are running on 1980, 1950 history.
Well, history is important, but you can't take the data from then all the way now, and look at what the information is now and what information is missing. They make presentations that look, that's why we want to do some of these, field research facilities on the West Coast, because we have gaps in data and we need to fill some of it.
Exactly. Well, hopefully you can get them interested in rebuilding Artificial Reef. Somewhere I told somebody that you had just done a paper and I was going to get a hold of it for them, and now I've got to get a hold of it, and I can't remember who I was going to send it to, but I still want to read it.
I could say, there's a couple papers in a program we called Section 227, came out in 1996, where the Corps gave a bunch of money, I think it was $60 million around the country to come up with demonstrations of different things. So in Florida, and I think, I'm going to say New Jersey, but I could be wrong, they did some artificial reefs. The Florida one was more like a ball with holes in it that would be more for fish and habitat. It wasn't like for recreational surfing or anything
Right.
else. So there are some of this going on, and those reefs are, they're developing several of them all over the world. And, we want to look at how that can apply here. So
Or the president tells us we're off topic.
that's true. Just turn my microphone.
Any other commissioners?
I have no comments.
All right.
Are we on commissioner comments still?
Yes, we are.
I understand that for the tenant building, I know that there was an issue from some of our tenants that they didn't want the new quote unquote retail center, I guess now known as the tenant building, to be changed. So I don't know if everyone knows that, but I just want it to be clear that, some of the lessees that we've gotten into a lease with new ahead of time, that this was going to be forthcoming. So I just want to keep that on everyone's radar at this point, because, I think there may be some attempt to engage the community, but I think that the plan that we've got is something that we need to continue to move forward with as best as we can and as thoughtfully as we can financially, with just considering what's overall best for the Harbor District and our, revenue generation potential.
Commissioner Slater Carter.
Speaking of which, the Mid-Coast Community Council held an informational meeting for the public on our new retail center. I listened to the whole thing, as did our general manager, Pruitt. And there were a lot of, I was a little surprised by the number of people who spoke. But I just want to assure everyone that this is in the pre-planning stages. And so the MCC was going to put together notes from what everybody said. I'm sure we'll get a copy. I hope people will stay in touch, but always remember, this is a enterprise district. We're not a gambling district and we're not a welfare district. So we have to run the numbers, both short and long term, to make sure we're not overspending. But we need to be increasing our sources of revenue in order to be able to meet our mission statement. And in order to meet the needs of the public, not only who heavily uses the harbor, but we'd like to get more people coming over. And this is all well and good, but there are things we need to do to be able to have that happen. So I'm looking forward to reading what came from the MCC. And yes, the initial discussions that I have sat in on have all said we want it to look like our harbor. We don't want it to look like Carmel. We don't want it to look like even Monterey with a boardwalk down the pier. But we do want it to be inviting and friendly for people who want to come and visit, and also to support our fishing industry, which the state and federal government are doing as much as they can to put strong limits on. So we're out there, we're looking at it, but this is going to be a long time down the road. And I thank the NCC for having it serious, because I think we need to keep people. I think one of the missions of this board is to be transparent and keep people informed. Thank you.
Have anything?
No, I have nothing.
I've two letters here, one received from Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, talking about writing the Ocean Protection Council in support of the San Mateo County Harbor District's request for funding for the Surface Beach Pilot Restoration Project. Copy of the letters enclosed. So it's very appreciative what Anna Eshoo has done for us. She's been a supporter of the harbor for a long time, and I want to thank her and her office for that letter. No other commissioner comments, then let's go on to the activity reports. Everyone, the agenda included the general manager's comments. General manager, do you have anything to add?
Just some clarification. I did attend the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary Advisory Council, which I represent the harbor sanctuary. Pushing real hard for new legislation to require all vessels operating within the sanctuary to have insurance. And that's to ensure that the vessels have coverage in the event that they either sink or go aground. They've had a problem. We've had a problem of vessels getting into distress and sinking or grounding in the sanctuary. And then the owner does not have the ability to raise or remove the boat. So they're pushing that through or with the state legislature. I updated them on the Continuing Authorities Program 111 request of the Army Corps of Engineers at Princeton by the Sea. So the Princeton by the Sea shoreline project to restore that beach and protect that property. And then also updated them on WERDA 2024. They're extremely excited about everything that's happening here in Pillar Point, and the superintendent of the sanctuary and I are coordinating a trip for her to come up and tour and see all the activity that we're doing. So that was a good positive meeting there. I did attend the Midcoast Community Council meeting. There was a strong support for improving the harbor with a new retail system or a new tenant building. There was some pushback from the current tenants and a couple of the residents of taking the old building down. They want to keep the old building and ask the district to consider rebuilding a new tenant building somewhere else so they'd have both. The MCC itself was very positive and supportive of what the Harbor District is trying to do with that. Also, just for transparency with the current tenants, I met with them as a separate group and with the architect and went over the current status of the tenant building and what the current drawings show the building as. So they're fully aware of what it is and what we're doing. So that was also a good meeting. The SB1 grant from the Ocean Protection Council, we did submit a full grant application a few weeks ago. It was received by the Ocean Protection Council and staff has reviewed our grant and it has been forwarded to the full OPC for approval at their next meeting, which is on September 10th in Sacramento. So it looks very positive that the district will be receiving one of the SB1 grant to support the Surfers Beach project, which is great news.
2.9 million.
2.9 million.
In that sanctuary meeting, was there any discussion of how to notify some of the fishermen's organizations about the insurance requirement that could be coming up? For instance, have they tried to communicate to the Half Moon Bay Fishermen's Marketing Association?
I don't know, but the fishermen's, the chair representing fisheries, I do not believe he or she attended.
Okay. Commissioner Zemke, Domrat. Yes.
At the Marine Sanctuary meeting, was there any discussion about, I heard some rumblings last week from people discussing a possibility of an area off of San Francisco and Pacifica called the Donut Hole. And what that means is there's an area that extends that there's no sanctuary activities and no sanctuary there. There were some rumblings that the sanctuaries may look at changing that and getting rid of that donut hole. Doesn't really affect the harbor. We're already in a sanctuary. It could affect maybe how people fish up there. It will definitely make things harder, such as, depositing sediments or finding sediment sources, if you're in the sanctuary, kind of like we may have the challenge here. But I was just wondering, did anybody talk about it?
There was no major
No
discussion.
mention, okay. So these are rumblings. I'm not sure how true they are, but we'll have to kind of watch that maybe.
The history of that marine sanctuary borders is fascinating. But I think that donut hole was created for Pacifica to be able to have its outflow from the sewer plant.
It's quite possible.
And then they shifted it to an on-stream or on-land
And facility.
facility where they run it through wetlands and they've gotten that tuned up and working quite well from what I've heard. But I hope people are looking at maybe the benefits to having something like that too, not just getting rid of it. Because there are, maybe that would be a good place for a test reef.
Mhm.
Because the marine sanctuary, you don't need to get their approval there.
That's true. In fact, I was part of a team of 5 old people. We call ourselves old surf dudes. And we're all retired professionals in engineering and coastal. And we have one gentleman who was on Jimmy Carter's administration staff. But we wrote a paper dealing exactly with that. It was an unsolicited opinion paper to the city of Pacifica. I also mentioned Pillar Point in there because it dealt specifically with building multi-purpose reefs as a protection mechanism for the city of Pacifica and other places. So I could provide a copy of that to anybody who'd want one, or to all the commission, if you want to take a look.
I'd love to have these kinds of things available on our website. I've just been trying to find things, for instance, at the county, and they've got their website so AI that you can't find anything. And so I ended up, for the piece of information I needed, going to the Mid-Coast Community Council website, because they have links and other things. And I think I would like to see this harbor district make those kinds of information available. Because by the time you get into what all the agencies are doing with sort of AI, they're forgetting these little papers and notes that have great value. Anyway, yeah, so that's where that came from, and I think we should be pushing that as a potential reef habitat, if nothing else, as a place for the fish to spawn
Sure.
and the kelp to regrow.
I too attended the MCC meeting that General Manager Pruitt is speaking of. There was discussion by some of the tenants that the move would be devastating to them. However, one of the tenants that said that has not complied with the terms of their lease and opening a restaurant. So on the nature transparency, there's still one of the spots there that is not bringing the harbor additional income. They're paying rent on it, but we're not getting our percentage. Any more comments on the general manager's report? Director of Operations.
Last month was very busy at both harbors on July 4th. Staff did an excellent job making sure that everybody that visited our facilities had a good time and were safe, didn't have any issues at all. At Pillar Point Harbor, Pacific Beach Coalition successfully conducted another trash pickup, which our staff assisted with. We also at Pillar Point Harbor had the Dream On car show, the first annually.
It was great.
It was very successful.
Yeah.
In spite of the weather.
Yeah.
Forgot to
Getting larger
mention
and
that.
larger every year.
I think so.
And then I'd like to thank Assistant Harbor Master Dante Madrigal for giving a presentation about Pillar Point Harbor for the Farm, Fish and Flowers event. They do that annually and did a great job. They also arranged for a local urchin diver to provide samples for the group that attended, the very large group. So thank you, Dante. And then we did receive also a second 2 in 1 week compliment on how clean our restrooms are at Pillar Point Harbor. So I know from my years in hospitality, managing marinas, that restaurants, hotels, every hospitality industry really is judged by how clean the restrooms are. And to get one compliment is unusual, because it is kind of just an expectation. So I'd like to thank our entire Pillar Point Harbor staff for their attention to our restrooms, the great job that they're doing overall, but specifically Harbor Master Chris Tibby and our harbor workers, Daniel, Jose, and Dave. At Oyster Point Marina, again, they were very busy on the 4th. Everything went perfectly, no issues at all. Harbor Master Smith was able to get at no cost to the district with South San Francisco our launch ramp parking area completely repaired and repaved, which is great. Fishing there has been a little bit slow in July, and now but during April, May, the halibut and striper were really hitting, and it was very, very busy. The parking lot was packed quite often. Pruitt already mentioned, that our letter of intent, was very in-depth, actually, everything necessary for the application for the OPC. Most of the construction for the Surfers Beach, pilot, restoration project. The staff recommended approval, and as general manager said, we'll be going in front of the entire board for their approval on September 10th. And then we also, our grant team, CSS, were able to submit a letter of intent for a US command. Hopefully remove over $1 million to remove the sunken 94-foot tugboat, Caleb, out of Zero Point Harbor, out of harbor. That's all I have.
Excellent. Any questions? All right, that brings us to the administration and finance activity reports.
Thank you, President Matoush. Good morning, commissioners. I'll be very, very brief this morning. The things that are not included on the administrative activity report include all the work that we're doing for our training and the implementation of the HR functions and the ERP system. Next week, we have training Monday through Thursday. And we're also preparing for the fiscal year end close and audit. So our staff is very busy putting together a lot of information for that. Thank you.
Thank you. So there are 8 items on our consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve all the items by consent, or would anybody like to pull any items for discussion?
I'd like to pull item 8, which is the Surfers Beach project update and prospective schedule.
All right. Any others? Is there a motion to approve items 1 through 7?
I'll move.
Second.
We have a roll call on that.
Commissioner Donrot,
Approved.
Commissioner Zemke, Commissioner Chang Corrali,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Yes.
and Matoush.
Aye. All right, moving on to item G1 and discussion. San Mateo County Local Area Formation Committee information request. General Manager Pruitt, I believe this is your item.
Good morning, President Matoush, Commissioners. On the 29th of July, the district received a letter from LAFCO requesting or asking several different questions and requesting some documents and information. If the response was due, original response was due last week, but talking with their executive director, I got the deadline extended till Monday of next week to enable the board an opportunity to review the draft response prior to submitting it back to LAFCO. The attached responsive letter and exhibit A, which is the meat of the response, has been drafted by staff, answering all the questions, including the additional question that was received a few days later, asking about more information about the Surfers Beach project. There are multiple exhibits and enclosures to the report. Some of them are several hundred pages long. We put those online so that you can click on the reports instead of printing them out and trying to conserve paper there. And I believe the report tells our story. The LAFCO letter says this is our opportunity to tell our story and what the district provides to the public. And so that's how we approached in drafting it, is to tell the story of the Harbor District, really focusing on the last 5 years of the Harbor District's history. Because that anything earlier doesn't necessarily reflect what the district is doing today. So I tried to focus that on what we're doing today and what our plans are for the future. With that, I am open to any comments or suggestions on improvements from the board and seek your approval to sign and send the letter.
Commissioners, comments? And for the sake of the public, we have a LAFCO representative and a LAFCO alternate. on our board here.
You're
So
talking about us.
if the shoe fits. All right, I
And
saw
right
two,
now,
I
I
saw
don't
two
know about-
hands go up, so
I don't
Commissioner
know about
Slater.
Virginia, but I am wearing my San Mateo County Harbor District
Me too.
shoes.
Me too. Or
Um,
do you have, you should.
in reading this, and I admit I'm only, I'm not even 2 years through this, being on this district. But I found it fascinating. Questions I have is you talked about a 2017 lease, which I admit I was a member of the public when I was paying attention to this, and I have always wondered about the financial analysis, and I'd like to see a current one of building a building at Oyster Point.
The 40,000 square foot, yeah.
Since 2017 and before that, Oyster Point has changed incredibly in the area surrounding it. The Harbor District hasn't had any opportunity to say anything, and to be real honest, finding Oyster Point anymore when you go into that east side of South City is a real challenge. I've gotten lost there many times. And the cost of construction has gone up significantly since then. And there's even, and there is a surplus of rental space available in California for commercial rental space. So I see that we're going to ask for it to be extended, and I would like to have a full board discussion on Oyster Point and the details of that. To find out the financial, because if we're going to be talking about changing it, we need to know what the financial consequences are. And so that big building there, 40,000 square feet, is about the lunchroom of some of the other buildings there. It might be a good place for very small businesses to want to be, or it might not be because nobody can find the very small businesses. And 40,000 square feet is a lot of commercial retail for the liveaboards who are there. And for the people who use the ferry to get there from Oakland. So I'd like to see before, it's stated very factually in this letter to LAFCO. And I think that if that's what we want to present, that's what we could present. But I still want a larger discussion in the near future.
Commissioner Chang Crowley.
Are you done, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay, I actually have, did someone else have it?
No, I just wanted to respond to Catherine's
okay.
comment, and probably we can talk a little bit more about that when we get to the Oyster Point Marina Liaison Committee, because we will be meeting with them. But that's probably where we can talk a little bit,
Right,
maybe not to the
right.
depth that we need to, but we can at least mention it.
Well, I think it's a good start, but I don't want LAFCO to be going around making us obligated for an old lease that, or an old contract that that did not change with the times.
Right.
Okay. My turn, okay. So I have a few edits, corrections, and suggestions. First of all, I just want to say, Jim, and to Julie and staff, everyone who's contributed to this report or this response, that it was outstanding. I think it does tell our story, and I think we've come a long way in terms of improvements and actually getting the business done over the last 5 years. And that also, Jim, is a testament to your leadership in this district. So thank you, thank you. And of course, Julie's work that's been continuous for what, since 2017-ish, right? 18, yeah. I mean, just tremendous, tremendous work in what I would call the biggest success turnaround story in San Mateo County of, in terms of public agencies. So thank you, thank you. Since I read this on my computer last night, I'm literally looking for these areas, but so if we can go through some of these pages, specifically, Jim and I talked about one of the issues in terms of, what was it, Jim? It was the cost of goods for construction and I can't remember, I can't find it in this section because it's very different from how it was laid out on my computer. But we talked about adding in their language about how COVID kind of helped.
Our
get us
discussion
stuck.
centered around the district's inability to meet the December 31st, 2024 deadline to replace stocks 12, 13, and 14.
Yeah.
Which when the original cost estimate, both the city and the district estimated the cost to repair those docks or replace those docks would be less than 5 million. In reality now, now that we've done all the design, engineering, and permitting, it's closer to 18 million. And that's just well beyond our budget to achieve right now. Commissioner Chincarelli and I are also discussing the fact of why those prices jump so much in a short time period and how the COVID pandemic caused significant labor and material shortages that drove up construction prices. And those prices are still high and we're still facing construction supply shortages, which keeps those prices high.
Right, so I just wanted that to be added into the report too, because, we had to take care of so many other issues, during COVID. So that's one thing. So, okay, if we can, Julie, I have just if we can just go through some of these. I'm looking at, if we look at the
Could you give us
response, I'm going
page
to
number?
Exhibit A, page 91 of 159. It's section B for financial ability, right?
Page 9.
91. I think it's important for us to indicate, I'm sure that Rob Bartoli knows that we're also an enterprise district. And I didn't really see that in here. In other words, our financials are also driven by the fact that we have to deal with leases and fees and rents because we are, part of we're 35% of our budget is enterprise money, right? So we can kind of indicate that in this, I don't know what section, I just threw it in enterprise, or in the financial ability, because they were talking about fees and our rates being reevaluated and tenants, so somewhere in there to indicate exactly, why it's just be like a one sentence, description of how we're
That's
also.
right there in the first
Well,
thing under 1B.
yeah, but I think it has to be it's got to be tied to the revenue piece.
Isn't that what it says in 1B, first paragraph?
Okay, I'm looking at.
92 of 159.
What are you talking about? I'm talking about adding language in there saying that we're an enterprise district and therefore we have to look at this as part of our finances.
It's part of it. I don't read anywhere in here that it says that is a basic part of our analysis.
Right, which it is.
And well, it is with Virginia and I can't speak to passports.
So, these sections are great, but what is the reason that we are looking at this? Obviously, these are questions that LAFCO wants, but I'm just saying, just to give almost like a summary about why it is that we care about this. It's 35% of our budget, for example. So that's just one suggestion. I'm looking at page 93 of 159, when we're looking at the financial policies. And maybe I missed it, Julie, but didn't we just bring on someone professionally to help us with cash management?
Yes.
So didn't see that in here, but I may have missed that. But I think we should add that. I think that's a big plus, right? Especially since we're trying to take advantage of the current environment for interest rates. And they're trying to help us navigate so we can maximize our money and investments. So I think I think that's a plus to professional cash management. If we look at page 96 of 159, section 8, there's just a verb missing in that. It says the FY 24-25 budget notes that they're $80 million. So just, we need to add a verb in there. So just a little grammatical thing.
Okay.
Page 99 of 159, when they're talking about ERAF, or we're talking about ERAF. You should probably, in my opinion, indicate that we're not counting on, we're using it as, we're looking at it as the way we budget it isn't like it's permanent, right? It's
It's included in the calculation of what we budget.
right,
currently.
but we understand that it can be taken away.
Yeah.
Right, so we should put that in here, that we understand that ERAF may not always be there, even though we budget it with that, and we consider that in our budgeting.
And we say that in the report that that's one of our concerns.
Yeah, I know that, but it doesn't say how we look at it. It says that it's a concern, but this is how we budget it based on, and maybe I'm looking at it differently, but.
Our current budget model, we do consider ERAF into the future that will continue to receive it. And our concern is if we don't, then we'll have to change. the
I know, but so I thought that we were looking at ERAF kind of as, we know that it's not permanent. That we
Well, no.
budget it as,
Right now, we're treating it as per,
oh, okay, well, then I,
there's talk about.
because I
ERAF
never
ending.
wanted ERAF to be budgeted permanently, but okay.
Right,
I thought we weren't doing.
I always think we use it for projects that can be postponed or put off.
Right,
Because you never know what the governor's going.
okay, then that's my bad, that I,
We look at it every year.
Yeah.
On if we're going to receive it
If
or
we're
not,
good,
or
right.
likelihood. But we're,
but we're
right now into the
budgeting it.
future, we're budgeting it in right now.
I understand that, but we know that it can be taken away.
Yeah, ERAF is not fungible.
Right, and so, okay, I mean, it's in here that we're concerned that it would be, but it doesn't say how we budget it, but okay, because that's something I think that we need to look at as a board,
Okay.
I agree.
because I would not, yeah, so. And then page 103, this is dealing with the Brown Act issue. This is page 103 of 159, item 2. It's the second full paragraph. It's the last sentence. It's the commissioner continued to attempt to make a public comment, and as a result, the study session was called. Can we just say adjourned instead of called? Because called, I think it just adjourned. It was totally, remember that meeting? It was just adjourned. I think that,
Wasn't that more than 5 years ago?
yeah, it was 2017.
Yeah. and
Well,
if
that's true,
been-
Jim. I mean, this is within the last 5 years. So this happened 7 years ago. Do we need to keep that in there?
The report actually covers from the last report to now. So, and I'm aware of that incident. And so
Was on tape.
I want to be an open book on the question that we did have 2 Brown Act violations or potential violations, one of which was this one. And the other one, we required the board to reconsider an item at a following public meeting. That all the other allegations that were made were found to be false or supported.
I would put in our response that 7 years ago.
Well, he has the year.
No, he has the year. People don't do math in their heads when they're reading stuff necessarily.
Okay.
You do. Some of us don't.
Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And I think those were the main, there was some other thing, and I have to. Those were the main things. There were, I think I had some issues with the property uses. Starting with page 106 of 159. I thought those were really great explanations, Jim. I just, yeah, I mean, I think everything else was fine, but those were like the main things. I liked how you handled the one shoreline thing, despite the fact that they weren't communicating with us in general. But I'm glad that we're, kind of on the same page now. So thanks for that. But I mean, those are just my suggestions and edits.
Following up on that comment with the one shoreline, just a minor change on page 101 of 159. The first bullet, reestablishing beach to serve as a nature-based protective zone instead of wall. People
Oh, yeah.
don't like walls.
Yeah.
So we're going to stay away from that.
Oh, and
word.
it is a zone, right?
Just put zone, I think zone would work.
That's
Maybe a
the kind
different
of
word.
thing that will come back and haunt you with the naysayers. And you're kind of going, oh, well, we're not in favor of wall, but it says in this. So I like zone or area or something like that.
Anyway, those are my suggestions and edits. I hope that's helpful.
All right, we're good on this topic. Staff has got direction.
I will,
Well,
I
would you-
will update the letter with those and issue the report on Monday.
Are y'all okay with that? Those changes? Okay.
All right, moving on to G2, MOU with Coastside Fire Protection District. General Manager Pruitt, this is your item.
Good morning again. The MOU between the Harbor District and the Coastside Fire Protection District was originally discussed between our organizations to align expectations on what the Harbor District can actually provide with the resources that we have for the Coastside Fire Protection, our Fire Protection District. The Coastside Fire Protection District provide medical first aid and EMT support for search and rescue cases. And they, from time to time, request assistance from the Harbor District to take out their firefighters to treat or evaluate patients or victims of search and rescue cases. And we're happy to do that. It's part of our business of what we do at the harbor. And one of the shortfalls of the harbor right now is we don't necessarily always have the crew members to staff the boat. But there's no rules or regulations that prevents a firefighter, if properly trained, to serve as a deckhand to get the boat underway, to make sure the staffing on the boat is safe to respond. So I met with Jonathan Cox from the Fire Protection District. We discussed an MOU, drafted the MOU together, and Cox already presented it to the Fire Protection Board, and they approved it for signature and sent it back to us to bring to the board this month for our approval. And if the board approves it, we'll go ahead and get that signed and back to them. It's a great tool. The staff, both the staff and at the harbor and the fire department understand their roles and responsibilities now. The board member from the Fire Protection District was very happy with the draft or the language of the MOU. Said that it was very educational for the board on what services that the Harbor District does provide for search and rescue here on the coast. One big point being that the firefighters, when they respond to on-water incidents, they don't get wet. And what I mean by that is they don't enter the water to retrieve people or victims of search and rescue. Only the Harbor District does that right now on the coast side. So with your approval, I will sign that MOU. We're also in the process of trying to contact somebody within the sheriff's office to draft a similar MOU with the sheriff's office. Any questions? That's my report. Commissioners,
Yeah, I had one question. Under the operation area, it's listed as from Pillar Point in the north to Pigeon Point in the south. And I assume that does not cover the entirety.
that
of
was a
the
typo.
cliffside.
It should have said, and it's been updated to read from Pedro Point.
Oh, Pigeon Point. Oh, okay.
Is it just a Pigeon Point or is it all the way down to the Santa Cruz County line?
For us, it's down to Pigeon Point. We can go down to the Santa Cruz County line,
That's what I would
but
have.
it's a little far for us to go for immediate emergency response.
So like Santa Cruz could come
Because,
up?
yes,
Okay,
Santa Cruz has a harbor patrol that
that will.
can also respond.
Okay, then we don't have to change.
So that's, Pigeon Point's really the outside limit of emergency response for us.
Commissioners, just Domrat.
Just to an update that is what happens north of Pigeon Point. Like if we go, not north of Pigeon Point, but north of Pigeon Point, Pacifica area up to the county line, the LA City Pacifica County line. That's where the county starts. We're not, who covers that area?
The sheriff's department and the Coast Guard.
Okay.
Coast Guard's a lot closer to that
Yeah,
area.
that's why Santa Cruz would be closer to that portion between Pigeon Point and Santa Cruz.
We do respond off of Pacifica.
That's why I remember there were some responses.
One case, we had one of our harbor masters actually swam out to rescue somebody from the beach. They hoisted the Coast Guard came in with the helicopter and hoisted the victim and left our swimmer in the water. And he swam back by choice. He did not want to be hoisted and go to the air station. And then the most recent case off Pacific, unfortunately, at the request of the sheriff, we went out and recovered a body that was located floating in the ocean.
So will the MOU cover any requests by the sheriff if they requested to go up there?
This is from the Coastside Fire Protection District. So Pacifica is outside their zone. So under mutual aid, they may go out there and go with us, but it's not covered in this MOU.
Commissioner Chankrali.
So I am so glad this is happening. So thank you, Jim, and thank Chief Cox for us too. I think it's great. I'm glad that we have such a wonderful working relationship with Coastside Fire, and I think that we should approve it. So, I mean, can I make a motion
Please.
to authorize the general manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Coastside Fire Protection District? Any associated cost incurred will be mutually agreed upon by both agencies. I think it's a fair MOU, and I thank their board of directors for approving this, and also Chief Cox for working with us to make this happen.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
All right. Roll call. Melanie, please.
Commissioner Zemke,
Aye.
Commissioner Chang Crawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
I,
President Mateusz,
Aye.
Commissioner Domrat.
Aye. All right. Moving on to item G3 in discussion. Ocean Science Center Committee Report, Commissioners Domrat and Slater Carter. This is an information only.
So we did talk quite a bit about that in the previous discussion where we had commissioner comments. And I'll ask Rochelle if she has anything else to add to that. The pictures that proves that we were there? There it is right there. So, always gonna have that proof.
A great thorough introduction to why you conducted the site visits, and I didn't know if Commissioner Slater Carter, if there was anything else to add, but I thought it was a great introduction.
One thing I'll add is again, last week, I met with a young oceanography professor who just started working at Stanford University. Very excited about what we're planning to do here. She said it'd be a lot closer to go here than down to their facility down in Monterey. So she'd like to stay involved with us in that. So I'm generating some interest, from a lot of different groups. And I think we had a little meeting this morning. We're now looking into what that next phase is of what we want to do and how we want to get more information about what would make sense, something here. So we're starting to look at the various agencies from the federal, state, local, other nonprofits, building kind of a list of who we think would be appropriate to approach, not necessarily from the funding standpoint yet, but from an interest and information development, whether they're interested in just education part, just the research part, what makes sense to do. So we're still building that interest base. And then once we do that, of course, the big one's going to be, what do we do about funding? And then how do we present this to others? I mean, do we have something that we want to build, a 1 or 2 pager that we can then hand out to people that maybe references our website, and you can find more information about this concept on our website and other things. So we're going to start getting into that next phase of fine tuning a little bit more what we plan.
I wanted to say I received a text and a phone call from a young man in San Mateo, and he'd read about me talking about this effort, and he was very curious. He sounded like he was in high school. So I told him to stay in touch and.
I called him back. He didn't respond to that call, but we'll touch base
Right.
together. Right?
But I just said, consider marine science as a career, because there's a lot of stuff going on there now, and we're just at the beginning of some exciting things. So, but he was curious about what was going to be happening with Surfers Beach, whether we were going to put a wall. And I said, well, we're looking at other options because walls only create more problems and more expense in the long run.
And thank you to staff. It was a great little outing, and we look forward to going to the next step.
All right, moving on to discussion item G4, Oyster Point Standing Committee Report, Commissioners Zemke and Chang Karali. This is an information only report.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chincarelli and I met with Mr. Pruitt last week or 2 weeks ago to go over and prepare for an upcoming liaison meeting with the city of South San Francisco, which will happen next week. Jim has been working on revising and kind of consolidating and updating the series of agreements that we have with the city of South San Francisco, which include the 2018 agreement and also reference to inclusion of the 2017 implementation agreement and the 2011 agreement, which will then be, I guess the 2011 agreement is going to be eliminated.
It expires in
It expires.
2026.
Right. So this agreement will then update all of those agreements.
Yes.
Okay. And this agreement has been provided to the city.
Yeah,
Yes. Have they responded to it yet? Or are they going to do that next week or?
they have not responded to it. I have a follow-up tomorrow.
Okay.
The agenda is, it lists the MOU as staff is asking the joint liaison committee authority to continue discussions to present an updated MOU at our next meeting with the liaison committee. The point on the 40,000 square foot building is that the 2018 agreement incorporates the 2011 agreement, which provides that the district may build a 40,000 square foot commercial building on Oyster Point, in which South San Francisco would then lease the land for that building back to the district. I think it's at $1 a year.
Right.
And since 2011, the district hasn't had the opportunity to take advantage of that. The whole Oyster Point's been under construction, but now that construction is slowing down, having discussions with wanting to continue to have that opportunity to build that building into the future, because that expires in 2026. I think is very important for the district. Right now, if we do nothing, then that
Would go away.
That opportunity would just go away. It doesn't mean we will. It just provides an opportunity.
Right.
This
I
is
think
options.
one of the things that plays into that, of course, is the city does have plans a long term out, perhaps, of, addressing the spit and building something on the spit more permanently and having a hotel there, which would increase the amount of traffic and viability of a commercial center as well. So that kind of enters into the timing of when we might be interested or when it might be economical
Yes, and
to pursue a 40,000 square foot.
I have a meeting this week to review their current status on their progress about addressing the flooding caused by landfill subsidence. Right now that the spit has gone down several feet because it has subsided on the landfill and it floods at high tide. We actually have waves crashing all the way across the spit at plus tides. So their plan is to raise that spit, and I get the update on that. I believe it's tomorrow. I have a meeting with them. So excited about that, excited about the possibilities of maybe reestablishing the bait shop that we had to close out there during the construction, and then also reestablishing fueling capabilities at Oyster Point. So all that's included with the new MOU and will be discussed at the liaison meeting next week.
All right, okay. All right, any questions on, yeah, Commissioner Slater Carter?
Yeah, I'm just, as always, curious about good analysis for that area post-COVID. Because everything that we have is pre-COVID
Right.
and pre-construction. And things have changed an awful lot. And I'd like to know, for instance, we're looking at sea level rise. How high are they doing this fill? We don't want to be building or constructing stuff on a fill that's going to be underwater in 20 years. And I'd like to know the contemporary financial analysis on if this is a break-even situation, which I think is okay, although I'd love to see us paying some of our labor, because we've got 13 people working there. And so those kinds of numeric analysis I'd like to see before we enter too tightly into this agreement, because we could are an enterprise district and we need to be paying all our bills. And South City has a budget, $1 billion budget. Or somewhere in there.
Is it that much?
Well,
I don't
maybe
think
it's-
Maybe not quite that big.
I don't think it's that.
Bigger than ours, let's put
It's
it that way.
much significantly bigger than ours, and our job is to work for all the people of San Mateo County. And so I'd like to be able to see all of this come out as to what is in it for the district.
No, I understand that, and I think one of the goals of the new MOU is to basically preserve that option that we have now.
If you don't have the option, then
Yeah.
you don't
Right.
preserve it, you don't have the option of the choice to decide to do anything or not.
I think it's good to keep options, but $18 million to repair those docks for 300, 400 boats.
Yeah.
And then, and maintain them, that, we need to be looking for money for that, maybe from the ferries. There are other
We have-
places,
Yeah, we have activity permits, but how do you get more?
how do we get more, exactly? So anyway,
The other thing is, do we have land there that would be conducive to dry storage? Seems to me there'd be an awful lot of people in that area that'd love to get a boat out of their driveway.
that's a good point, Tom. And instead of a 40,000 square foot building, we can put in gated locked storage.
I mean,
And
the,
people could put their kayaks there and their boats and their windsurfers. There's a lot of people with a lot of
Walkers.
apartments.
yeah. Well, anyway, these are all good suggestions and it's things that we should think about in terms of revenue generation. Potential revenue generation.
It doesn't say what the commercial building has to be, so.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Could be a storage.
Dry storage with a retail facility and a small restaurant or something.
Well, so Catherine wanted to have a fuller discussion on this. I mean, we have our meeting, I think, on August 28th at 2 p.m. Is that
It's
right?
next week.
Yeah, so, I guess, what do we want to get out of that meeting?
Well, we haven't met we weren't able to do it last year, for scheduling reasons.
Yeah.
So it's just to get a general update of what the city's plans are out there, now that the construction is kind of over, what that looks like.
The working agenda is, starts with introductions of everybody again, because we haven't met in 2 years. It's followed by a review of the 2024 annual report, which I completed and Sharon and I worked on together. I've signed it already and it's being forwarded to her desk for signature. And then followed by a update from the Harbor District on Oyster Point, followed by an update from the city, and then close it out with a discussion with asking permission from the liaison committee for staff to continue discussions on amending the 2018 agreement to reflect reality.
Okay, so the two council members from South City, I think they're totally brand new to this, right?
I'm not even sure who's. I know
Well,
this is-
yeah, I think the last time it was James Coleman and Eddie Flores, but that could have
It's
changed.
changed. I know the harbor is technically in Eddie Flores' district, so I'm sure he's probably one
Well,
of them.
that's who, remember we had that little walking tour there? They were there.
Mhm.
And they were the liaisons, I think, at the time. I don't know if they are now, but in any case, if they are, they're totally new to this compared to everyone else on this board. So I think giving some background information is a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should find out can we find out who their
Yeah,
committee members
I
are?
have an email that has,
The
I think it's the mayor and
Vice mayor?
vice mayor.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
it would be
it's
Eddie
the
and-
same, but we haven't had a meeting of this liaison committee since they've been elected,
Right,
right? That I know of. I don't think we
because
have.
we didn't have one last year.
Right.
No, but they were, I think James when was he elected? In 2020? But so during COVID, we didn't have one.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So
yeah.
he's never had one with us. Don't remember when Eddie was elected.
We had one in the very beginning of 2020.
Yeah, but they weren't elected until November of 2020.
And we had another one in 2021.
Mhm.
But that was the outdoor one, right?
2022, we did not have one in 2023.
Right, but the outdoor one was not, I don't remember having, well, I may not have been on that committee.
So in
Which
any
one
event,
was
their
the-
name,
Member Coleman was on, we had a sit down meeting with him.
Okay,
That was before Eddie Flores was elected.
yeah, because was he elected? Okay, in any
He
case,
was
2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in any case, the point is that we were gonna have to review with them the background information.
Mhm.
Okay,
and the South City budget, to correct my misstatement, is 145 million.
million, yeah. And I think they
So
have.
it's a lot
It's
more than us.
More than us.
Yeah, but they're now dipping into, from what I'm reading, is that they're dipping into their reserve, so
They
I
are.
don't know what
Yeah.
their financial situation is like right now. But we need to figure out how we work with them in that regard.
We don't want to dip into our reserves.
Well, our reserves are significantly less than theirs.
That's my point.
All right, any more on our Oyster Point Standing Committee report? Moving on to item 5, Pillar Point Retail Center Ad Hoc Committee report. Myself and Commissioner Slater Carter. And basically, we met August 15th, discussing the Retail Building Ad Hoc Committee. Here, we had our harbor building consultant provide a presentation on the current design features of the Pillar Point Harbor tenant building. The general manager has met with the tenants. We know about the Midcoast Community Council meeting that we've already discussed. We talked about containers that have come a long way but are expensive. We talked about trailers as a temporary siting location. A lot of the tenants were not in favor of it, but somebody who's been in this harbor for well over 30 years. You're talking about an old cinder block building that outlived its usefulness a long time ago. So it's kind of quaint, but it's got to go, and we need something new that's more environmentally friendly. The issues that the board has to discuss today are we're going to change the name of the project from the Pillar Point Harbor Retail Building to the Pillar Point Harbor Tenant Building. There was a lot of angst over what kind of stores and facilities would go into the center. Everybody was against the t-shirt tchotchke shops. But we believe the name Pillar Point Harbor Tenant Building more reflects what we're trying to work with. The second thing to discuss is taking into consideration the new land purchases should the district reopen siting of the new Pillar Point Harbor Tenant Building. We did discuss that a little bit with the consultant, and they're going to be looking at some options. And with the understanding the district is currently developing the 2025 strategic plan, should the district place the project on pause until such time as the strategic plan is finalized, or keep working along, maybe a little slower, but just keep working along towards the project. So that concludes my report. The three items to discuss are feedback on number one, changing the name of the project from the Pillar Point Harbor Retail Building to the Pillar Point Harbor Tenant Building. Commissioner comments, please.
I have a question. What was the negativity towards the current name?
Many members of the public were very upset that exactly what you talked about before, not wanting to become another Monterey and just having t-shirt shops, just having people selling tchotchkes, little junk. They wanted something more relevant to the coast. And they were offended by saying that we'd have. We're asking you to consider changing the name to Tenant.
A tenant sounds like the projects, in my opinion.
We have tenants that are all of our leases.
I know. Come about commercials, I don't know. I mean,
Can a tenant sell tchotchkes?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I guess my
So-
thing, first of all, it's a subset of the public.
Just
It's not
semantics.
all of the public, right? And, the retail to me doesn't conjure up selling tchotchkes because the current tenants that we have aren't doing that. So maybe these people buy tchotchkes and stuff, but I get it. I don't want it to look like that either, but if I'm okay with changing the name, I just think tenant building sounds like it's a building project, like low income project. So I don't like the word tenant. I like the word retail.
Our restaurants retail.
Yes.
Yes, that everything we have there is retail. And they're not selling tchotchkes. So it's only the few people who think that conjures up that image. And I guess Carmel, I don't know, I don't buy tchotchkes from Carmel.
I buy
Or-
sock.
From the Southern California
They're
ports.
Have you looked at Santa Cruz Pier? That kind of has that old restaurants. It has little tchotchke shops. It has nice shops with a lot of. Gotta come up with the word, what does tchotchke mean? Maybe we.
But they associate it with retail and I don't. That's why I have a part of changing it.
Tchotchke has,
Buy it, for their kids or for themselves, a Pillar Point Harbor
This is
t-shirt.
the subset of the public that,
well, I'm gonna make a different suggestion.
Okay, good.
I think we call it the Pillar Point Bait Building or Pelican Building or I know people are.
Business center.
Yeah,
How about
Deals.
shopping area or something? I don't like- I like
personally,
retail.
I find retail is fine.
I do too.
I'm
I-
not worried about it, but if we do, I think we should be thinking about our future in terms of what we want to attract people with. And we could always take the name of a boat that started in the harbor or
Well,
something.
or
that-
how about Pillar Point Enterprise Project or something? I don't know.
I think there's a lot of different things. I think we should keep retail until we come up with something,
Yeah,
but
I agree.
I love the idea that we're going to be working with the migrating mural folks and we should be naming, you could have the kelp forest picnic area or something, so that we take a different kind of retail approach as to just a commercial lease approach.
Point Sales Center.
Well, that sounds like a call center.
All
Pillar Point Harbor Enterprise Zone or something. I don't know.
I'd be careful with that because
I'm not
those are
I'm
under-
kind of
those are
joking, but
underwritten. Yeah, I think changing the name, let's
I'm
figure
fine
out
with-
in our strategic plan where we're going with this before we.
I just, yeah, I'm fine with that, Catherine. I just think this whole thing.
I've been watching the Pelicans. I'm sure everyone has. I think the Pelican building is cute. And then we can put pelicans all around it, and murals on it. And people can recognize it.
Anyway, I agree with Catherine. We should just keep it until we come up with a better name at our strategic planning session, if we even want to.
Since we're not selling pelicans or even pelican feathers or anything, it won't be confusing.
Well, but there may be an expectation that we do something that's like put it together a pelican sanctuary, which I don't think that's what we're.
No, we couldn't feed them all.
Anyway, I like your suggestion. Just keep it with retail building, keep it at retail building until we come up with, if we even come up with another name.
Yeah, I agree that, tenant building, I guess I don't have a warm fuzzy feeling about that.
Right, like inviting.
But retail seems to fit the picture and
Maybe for now, maybe when it's
Yeah.
formalized, we call it the Pillar Point Center.
Yeah.
Pillar Point
Maybe
Harbor
Pillar
Center,
Point
which is
Harbor
actually not that.
yeah.
Okay. I agree with
We can
Catherine.
keep that for now, because that's what we're looking at the future of building a retail center. And once we get it, we just call it Pillar Point Harbor Center.
Yeah,
I
I like that.
And we could always change it to the Pillar Point Harbor Center right now.
We could.
Going back.
You take
Well,
a
I think that I would, you want to make a motion? Because I think that's a great idea. I like.
Sure, I'll make that a motion.
I'll second that.
Wait, there's no action item. This is just a receipt.
Just
Oh,
information.
okay. Can we put it-
I like
But
it.
we're
simply discussing.
Okay, got it. Oh, discussed. Okay, but can we put this? We want to put this.
So
on-
taking in consideration the new land purchases, should the district reopen the siting of the new Pillar Point Harbor tenant building? Commissioners.
I have a comment on that. Just remembering the difficulty, because we had in citing that, we looked at various different options on the land, and the constraints kind of all led us back to that was really the only practical place to put it because of sea level rise and other reasons. Now, the land that we purchased is kind of outside where we'd like to have it. I mean, because people are going to be drawn to it because there's the harbor there,
Right.
not because they're behind a big parking lot or across the road. And then you also have, where would this county or city or public opinion want you to put it? Because I think putting things along the road may run into some opposition. So
Right.
I'm-
The idea of considering the new properties that we purchased was not necessarily to put the new retail or new Pillar Point Center up on the new property. It was more of if we put the center in parking lot C, it would take away parking.
Right.
We would be required to establish additional parking
Parking, right.
for that building. They would, unless we can find that parking, we wouldn't be able to move it anywhere. Now that we have a new property both over above the launch ramp and across the street on the Burnham Strip, we have other options for parking, which frees up the idea of putting the center up into parking lot C. Not necessarily moving it to the new property.
Yeah.
The property we purchased would just provide those parking outlets.
I think,
I agree.
that it, yeah, we're considering the new land purchases and what to do with it. I think before we make any decision, yay or nay, we should pull out the condition assessment and the engineering and structural assessments. I have been told, and my experience is, you buy a building of a certain age and it costs you more to fix it,
Yeah, than to tear
to
it
meet
down.
current standards than it does to tear it down and start over. For instance, I have to, my house burned in a fire, and the code up, bringing a 40-year-old house up to current codes is going to, the ridge beam isn't even adequate.
Oh, my God.
The tie downs to the foundation need to be redone. Now, this was a perfectly sound house. It didn't even shake when the washing machine was running, like most houses. But all of this, and the roof was stable, everything else. There's charcoal inside on the house, like most of it, but in talking to an engineering, the engineering and structural upgrades are going to be significantly expensive. And it's cheaper, what he said, is because of mold in particular, to tear it down to the foundation and just, if our foundation is good, reuse the foundation. But the foundation at Pillar Point Harbor, I don't know how good that is. Given all the earthquakes, because it's just within hundreds of yards of a major earthquake fault that is the potential strength of the one, all of a sudden, the San Andreas fault. And you can see it when you're driving past the airport and there's that bluff on the east side of the Pillar Point, and that's the earthquake fault. So you can see what kind of potential that has, and it goes out to sea significantly off of Pacifica, but it's only a few hundred yards from our structure. So we need to make sure that we are kosher, that we meet all the current engineering standards before we make a commitment as to where we're going to put it.
Commissioner Domrat.
So we in agreement on number 2 that we don't think that the new land purchases really impact us going forward with what we wanted so far?
Well, it might, maybe.
I mean, I'm concurring, I guess, with.
Yeah, maybe
with,
1 and 2 and 3 kind of fit together in
Yeah, I agree.
the strategic plan may conjure up some things that might be relevant to the.
What I would say is if 2's out, I understand 2 and 3 kind of hold in, but can we continue with 3 to some point where we would have to make some kind of final decision? So if we get rid of 2, there isn't really any other siting that we're talking about. So, you see what I'm saying? I mean, I'd like us to keep going forward until the point where something is going to stop us that it then costs real costly if we have to go backwards a little bit. But if we get rid of number 2, saying, look, the new land areas, really aren't in that mix. We've been through all that already. Then 3, can continue the way we've been going.
Well, and let me add
3 will
that
make us focus without 2.
changing the site of that structure changes a whole lot of the permitting agencies. We will have to go through coastal and goodness knows how many others. Whereas we can call it a rebuild and keep, a couple old 2x4s that are gray and scenic and rebuild around it. Oh, I know, we're keeping it as a rebuild because we have $1 million bathroom there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, don't want to lose that.
We don't want to lose that $1 million.
Definitely not.
Well, I have to agree with Commissioner Zemke and Don Morat. We've had all the site considerations in the past. My suggestion is examining temporary siting for alternative locations and looking at the parking. But this is all going to be working through the strategic plan anyway.
Right.
I have to
Right.
say, let's not
Keep
stop
three.
this. We've got to go ahead. One thing that was interesting that the Harbor District consultant talked about, we could basically do that project 1/2 and 1/2 because the way it's constructed, so that's a possibility.
Yeah.
And build it up one side, then build it up the other. But that's a remote possibility for the future. So I think that with the upcoming strategic plan discussion, we're not going to put this on hold, but that's the strategic plan is going to help put legs on this thing.
Yeah, right. Okay,
That's the end of that item.
good.
Search and Rescue Committee report. Oh, I think I'm up again.
Well, both of us are, but yeah, you can go ahead.
I thought you'd have Phoebe.
All right,
Chair.
the Search and Rescue Committee met on August 15th. And Commissioner Chankrali chaired the meeting remotely.
No, I was here.
Oh, were you on that one?
Yeah, we were here.
Okay.
I can, do you want me to
Go ahead.
talk? Okay, so basically the highlights are in the report, and basically the main thing is that we reaffirmed the Harbor District's commitment to providing search and rescue capabilities on both the coast side and Oyster Point Marina. One of the things that I think was an open item was that President Mateusz and General Manager Pruitt were going to meet with Supervisor Mueller to talk about what we talked about. And so did that happen?
No.
The meeting was rescheduled to next week.
Okay. And so that I guess then we'll get an update next month on this.
Yes.
Okay, because I think that's important to understand how the county might or might not fit into this. We also discussed how we were very happy about how the MOU that we approved with Coastside Fire was happening and moving forward, and the need to have a similar MOU with the sheriff's office. And I think Jim is involved in getting that started. So Jim, do you want to talk about that a little bit? I mean, there may not be a lot going on since this meeting, but if you
I
have.
just sent a few inquiries to the sheriff's office and I'm waiting to hear back.
Okay, one thing that we discussed, was how do we move forward with our own crew? And so something I think Jim's gonna explore, if, and it's a big if, our harbor masters should be sworn officers, right? The cost of that would go up tremendously. So Jim, I don't know if you have any updates on this.
We're looking into
Looking at it, right?
similar models on how they staff harbor district or harbors, such as Santa Cruz. They have a split staff where they have harbor masters or harbor workers that take care of the maintenance. And then they have a security staff, which are sworn police officers that take care of control safety aspects of the harbor and also the water, and then also do the search and rescue aspects of harbor's work. The other aspect of it is having the additional staff of sworn officers on staff will be able to free up the time of the other deputy harbor masters to do more maintenance work and upkeep, and have more staff available so that our availability for search and rescue on the coast side will greatly increase it. Right now, because of staffing, our ability to do search and rescue 24 hours a day is significantly
Limited.
reduced.
Yeah. And but going into that sworn status would require different training, all of that, and
Different training,
cost
different,
structure.
Costs different.
Yeah,
We'll have to add supplies down and additional equipment for the harbor, different types of liability, different retirement system, and we'll put a complete package together for the board to consider at a future board meeting.
But the one thing that you also mentioned in here is that status elevation or change could provide additional outside funding to support this law enforcement mission. So it would kind of change the mission based on how we could get funding.
It'll enable the district to apply for a lot
Other
of
grants.
security grants or
Yeah.
homeland security grants to support the law enforcement aspect of that. The district does go down this route, the officers would be able to board and enforce boating safety laws, boating under the influence laws. And that aspect, right now, we don't necessarily have that authority to do or the training to do it.
That's it. I mean, I guess we're gonna just continue to research right now. Jim's been really great at, getting the information to us and, looking at the different options. So thanks for all of that, Jim. I just want to add that we did, if you haven't read the responses from Mayor Jimenez and from Supervisor Mueller, I would suggest that you do. This is with regard to funding this from the city and the county, in terms of cost sharing. And I think the city manager of Half Moon Bay basically said that the city of Half Moon Bay is in a structural deficit mode right now of about $4 million. Right, so I don't think that we're gonna get a lot of help from there.
Those attachments are not in my packet.
No, but I saw them online, so we should probably put those in here. The response from Supervisor Mueller, I don't know if he fully understands, but maybe that means that we have an opportunity to clarify, so I'm hoping in that meeting that we can clarify our budget for him to understand this.
In addition, we just talked about collaboratively looking for more money for our search and rescue. Because if we had automatically $1 million additionally, we could fund some different things.
I'm curious about what kind of insurance, other insurances we would need. And what liabilities we are undertaking with these.
And all that will be in the package that the board will consider or we provide.
One of my favorite sayings is no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
I want to know what the punishment is.
Okay, I think that's it, Tom, unless you have anything to add.
Now we're gonna go back to
Item
item
8.
F8, Surfers Beach Project Update and Prospective Schedule. This was pulled by Commissioner Chang Karali.
Yep, I just wanted to pull this item to highlight the fact that we're moving forward with this instead of just voting on this for consent. I think it's a long time in coming, and I've heard some very positive comments and feedback from the public, including Sam Licardo, who was so excited about this. He was like, "Oh, when is it starting?" So that's good. So that was really the reason that I pulled it. I don't know if if you have anything to add, Jim. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory in here, but the main thing is, if anyone is interested in looking at this, any public member or advocate for moving forward with this, I suggest that we keep an eye on this report because I think it's going to get updated as the process moves forward. So, I mean, I'll make a motion. Well, I guess it's information only, so we don't need a motion, right?
I'd like to make a comment too.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, we need to approve it for the consent agenda.
Okay, that's true.
John, I found the compliance matrix that our consultant put together very helpful. I
Very.
mean, I have to get my magnifying glass out to read some of the printing, but it gives me an additional level of confidence that we're really got the momentum here and have this task firmly in hand. So thanks for getting that
We've got a
together.
very professional team working for us with regard to all the permitting challenges we have had, for many years now. made a lot of progress with the permitting. We haven't really had an update since February, I think, of this year, but we had multiple updates during 2023. We'll continue to update the board. So this was a very, it's a good process that we had this update now.
Yeah.
And that also our design engineering permitting consultant also had a couple attachments, as you say, the permitting matrix, which better explains not only the past permitting hurdles we've overcome, but also where we're at with each of the.
All the little details to follow.
Exactly. We still do have to jump over a few more hurdles, but bottom line is February, nothing's changed with regard to us still intending on issuing the invitation for bid for construction in mid-October. And then hopefully starting actual construction, having everything completed to where we can get a authorization from all the permitting agencies to begin construction in early spring, mid-summer.
Just another comment, a thought that popped into my mind. Since it took us so long to get here, when we actually start things like, moving the eelgrass and stuff might make a PR opportunity to make a press release saying, here, we're finally going to do this, and this it can kind of draw attention to what we're doing.
As we discussed earlier too, I think it's great that under general manager's direction, we were able to, and the board is responsible for hiring CSS, which was our new grant consulting firm. And they did an excellent job helping our design engineering permitting consultant put together a successful for the Ocean Protection Council grant for $2.9 million to help us with the construction. The general manager was able to use his networking skills to get over 14. I think we've got 16 now letters of support that were sent to Ocean Protection Council. And I think that greatly assisted with their staff recommending our approval. And again, on September 10th, their Ocean Protection Council members will in fact be considering approval.
Just a little follow-up on what Bill was saying. I mean, prior to my being on the board, I worked a lot more closely with Brad Damitz, our consultant. And one of the things I tried to get him to do that I was going to do with him is to really embrace the community, and certainly our community students and kids, carving a little square meter of the new eelgrass bed and have the high school plant the eelgrass in there, and they can, have somebody measure it or have a competition between schools. I mean, get the kids involved in the actual science of the removal of eelgrass, the planting of eelgrass, as long as it's safe, if it's in shallow enough water, something like that. So I will continue to chat with our consultant to make sure we can program.
As I, George, we've discussed it, and Brad is going to ensure that in the invitation for bid for the contractor, that there's an aspect included. The tire hands.
No, we don't want it impacting anything that we're doing at all. But it helps with that PR thing too.
We can either do it formally or just as we did involve schools in helping us plant some of these.
Have Channel 7 come in and show the kids planting eelgrass. I mean, these are simple things, but it really buys, big benefits in the future.
Project as well, and Brad led that.
Back in the 80s, we had a group called the Coastal Zone Foundation, and we were meeting in Southern California, and we actually had kids take buckets from behind a dam in Ventura and take a sand bucket and bring it to the ocean and dump it in. So, the media went ballistic over stuff like that. So this is just something small, but I'm looking for more from the kids and the high school kids, their science class, to kind of take a look at growth, what makes it grow, what the water temperature is. They can make these little kind of measurements you're right, as long as it doesn't impact what we need to get
We
done.
got some real good
So that'll be a lot of,
West Trail.
fun.
Very.
Getting back to the schedule, thank you for the timeline. Goes out a lot further than I think is all that important right now, I think for the next year. But I want to take a look at a little bit about what happens in September. And the very first bullet item, coordinate with the permit agencies on permit requirements. After pre-construction, I also want to know construction, post-construction. I really want to make sure that that meeting, these agencies understand what their data collection requirement is to make sure we're getting what they need. The worst thing we can do, you heard me say this before, is we get at the end of this whole thing and somebody comes back and saying, well, you didn't measure this, you didn't measure that. So none of this really is meaningful to us. You look at things like the surfing conditions. Surfing is directly related to what the bottom of the ocean is doing. If we're not doing any hydro surveys during that challenge, we may not know why the surf is doing what it does. I did find in this, all the fine print, one place where it did say something about hydro surveys. But it doesn't stand out. I mean, so I want to know, maybe I'll again chat with our consultant as to what the thought process is for pre-surveys, kind of post-summer in October, November, this timeframe would be good to have kind of what that hydro survey condition is, not just the topo surveys. And they're going to do that with drones and they could do it, but this is in the water. And the water's calm enough that they may be able to come up with a sled that they can pull and measure. There's ways to do that, you know, in water surveys. And then kind of pre-construction, post-construction, and then over the time period, how that mass of sand moves, where's it going to go? How does it distribute? And not just looking at the dry beach and how it changes, because really you're only looking at the width of the beach, because only 20 to 30% of the beach you see is really what we call the beach. Everything else is below water and goes out to like 20 or 30-foot water depth. It's that whole section we call the beach prism that changes and moves with things. So, you know, I just want to make sure that Brad is happy, that all the agencies are happy, that our data collection plan will satisfy at least that requirement, that we're collecting that, not that they'll like the results or not, but that we're getting the component of data that they're all gonna need. So,
Hey,
Well, I urge anyone interested to be sure to look at this compliance matrix. Commissioner Domerat brings up some good points about making sure all the agencies talk to one another and we have all the information we need. We know that's what delayed the project this year. If we close out that topic,
well, do we need to approve it since it was on consent?
yes,
I'll make a motion to just receive the report for Surfers Beach Replenishment Pilot Project, projected timeline update.
second,
can we have a roll call?
President Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Yes.
Jen Crawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Domerat,
Aye.
Commissioner Zemke.
Aye.
Can I just add one more thing? So I know that on our website, I'm looking at it now on my phone, we have this update in general on what's going on with this project. Just so that people don't have to search for this report, which I think is really good. Maybe we should add that to this, to update the website.
Yeah, I already asked Melanie to
Okay.
update our website.
This
On the
report,
project page.
yes,
With the attachments.
Okay,
that
perfect.
Brad-
okay, thank you.
So they don't have to actually
Go
look
into
back
the
at our
meeting.
board meetings
Yeah.
to find this.
Yeah, because I think this project is going to be followed very closely. Anyway, thank you to staff for doing such great work. I'm glad this is coming
It-
through.
Probably been answered and we've already approved it, but I just noticed that we have to do a bird nesting survey until September 15th. Does that mean our project is postponed until after September 15, 2025? Or does it mean we can do the bird nesting survey from September 1st to September 15th and then fill in the forefront,
It's not going to,
oh,
it's not
excuse me.
going to slow our project. We go.
Um,
All right, we're on to future agenda topics. Commissioner Domerat.
I'd like us to start thinking and maybe discussing the potential that, maybe we have this already, please correct me if I'm wrong, like a public relations firm that could help us in promoting kind of a lot of our new initiatives as we go forward. Also maybe improvements to the website, making it, you know, as Commissioner there might be other methodologies that a PR firm can look at things and make it more readable, more legible, easier for people to get to. But then also, you know, helping us with promoting a lot of the activities that we're going to look at the harbor, whether it be the Ocean Science Center, whether it be other kinds of recreational fun activities at the harbor. Maybe we could start initiating a discussion if something like that is possible. So.
Do we need to vote on that?
I kind of make comment, is that something we can work into our strategic plan consideration? Rather than have a separate meeting, I think.
No, I think it's part of the,
Something
yes,
that kind of
I
falls
think
under
that's great. That's a great.
that
idea.
umbrella of the strategic plan, but I don't want to lose the thought.
Yeah, so I
So,
think that's a good place for it because Willie would embrace everything that we're going to be doing and have
Right.
somebody formally that can, you know, it shouldn't be up to staff and all of the pressure that we and all of our subcommittees put on staff to prepare this and that and the other thing. So I'd like to get a little pressure off of them and see if that's possible.
I agree, and I just want to say that the fact that we're even at this point to be able to discuss this is just amazing. And I think that it just shows that there's a lot of good work that's been done and it should not be unnoticed. So I agree. Well, yeah, but we can talk about some of that too.
Don't we have somebody right now that we're paying to do some work for promoting the harbor?
Just locally.
I think we need somebody with countywide connection.
I've reached out to a firm to discuss the possibilities of doing exactly what Commissioner Domerat's talking about, and I got a proposal back, but it was very cost prohibitive at the time I was looking at it.
Well, I mean, I think and at least we can put it on the strategic planning committees, or the strategic plan agenda, just to talk about the need and the options. I mean, we
Yeah,
may
I
not
can-
be able
I
to
can
afford it.
notify-
Yeah.
Roush and let him know that it was discussed.
I actually talked to him about that.
We're good to go.
Well, I hope he put that in there. Okay.
Do we have any idea when the strategic plan is going to be
The meeting.
Right
scheduled?
now, I know he's conducting the interviews. I don't know if he's completed them all yet.
I've been interviewed.
I have not yet.
Okay, I gave him,
My fault.
I did give him your phone number.
Okay.
Did you have a future?
All right,
agenda
for one of
item?
the future agenda items that I'd like to look
Oh,
at
Oyster Point, sorry.
is the chili cook-off in the fall and a clam chowder cook-off event in the spring. We've got a little preliminary background on this. If we're gonna do this year, even if we kind of do the first one kind of halfway, we're closed in on the end of October, beginning of November right now.
Wait, what is this?
Two new events, your activities, people have been very
Oh,
active.
okay.
And we said we want to bring a chili cook-off to the harbor, and this would not be new.
No, I know,
Since I've,
I'm just,
talked to people, they used to have these in the fifties and sixties, so.
I attended in the eighties.
the firefighters have a chili cook-off
And
that's
then,
happening. this
clam
week.
chowder event. So, well, since we're not discussing it now, let's put that on an agenda and make it come live.
Just in addition to that, I know when we discussed this, I did communicate a little bit with the Skyline College Jazz Orchestra, jazz band. They'd be more than happy to come. They don't charge any money. So
Fun.
you know, that timeframe, they play in Half Moon Bay at the Odd Fellows every year. And they would probably continue to do that. They do that like in December, but the October timeframe may fit for like a 2-hour concert, you know, during or. So that's something that we can continue to talk about.
If I can make a recommendation with that is, prior to next meeting is have the committee, ad hoc committee meet and come up with a plan for the board to consider
Yeah.
and move forward with it that way, instead of staff trying to develop
It's on an ad hoc.
All right,
I
an
agree.
idea on their own.
Yeah, I agree.
perfect.
We also have the holiday lighted boat festival.
Yeah, which are we
Which
doing
is
that?
December 14th with a backup of December 21st.
And then there's an informal, I still believe it was a few years ago, and I saw it, the informal, Witchers and Warlock paddle in the harbor.
The Santa paddle.
And
Yeah,
then there's a
No,
Santa
there's a
paddle.
witch
too.
paddle too.
Witch and Warlock paddle.
Yeah,
That'll happen before Halloween, I guess the Saturday before Halloween, I remember seeing them. It'd be nice to formalize some of these things a little bit more. I know the Witchers one down in Morro Bay, they get over 500 people participating, and there's a volunteer fee, and those dollars collected go to the community for home. So it's a big thing all over the country, so it'd be nice to maybe more formalize some of these things. But
The
we'll-
activity committee can work.
the activity.
All right, but do we have any things to decide for future agenda items? Anything we've got to vote on as a board to agree on?
I'd like to see a discussion on the finance of the, agenda.
the 40,000 square foot piece or
Yeah.
what?
Just the overall view of it in one place.
Sure how soon we could do that necessarily. I mean, it might be a good topic for the future agenda, but.
Well, that's what she's saying.
Yeah.
That's why I'm bringing it up
Oh,
under
okay.
future agenda. Because there's gonna be lots of discussions, we may as well keep the dollar amounts contemporary.
Does that meet with staff's ability to put something together?
No, it's our Ted to bring that to the board already,
All right,
but
Yeah.
we can vote on adding as an agenda item sometime in the future. But when that comes through the Oyster Point Subcommittee, I can't tell you what date that will be.
okay, so,
I'll make a motion,
Okay.
because it's a future agenda item, so it doesn't have to be
Be
next
next
month.
month, right?
So I'll make a motion to put that onto the Oyster Point issue onto a future agenda.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, roll call, please.
President Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Jane Corrali,
Aye.
Commissioner Domrat,
Aye.
Commissioner Zemke.
Brings us to the point where we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll.
President Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Zemke,
Aye.
Commissioner Domrat,
Aye.
Commissioner Jane Corrali,
Aye.
Commissioner Slater Carter.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned, 11:57.
Thank you.
Yay.